Speaker, my honourable friend, the member for Perth and North Perthshire, again sends his apologies and hopes to be able to resume his duties in this place as soon as possible. Mr Speaker, I welcome the comments from the Prime Minister yesterday on the urgent need to address everyday racism. I would draw members to my register of interest as a voluntary trustee of White Ribbon Scotland, and I wonder if the leader would agree with me that it's groups like White Ribbon who are directly addressing the issues of men's attitudes to women, men's role in violence against women, that actually could make such a massive difference in tackling this issue, and would he arrange for time in government time where we could further consider and address the topic and the role that groups like White Ribbon can play in moving us forward. Last week I also welcomed the news that music streaming service at Spotify now lists the Scots language as an outlet, and have tabled an early day motion. Attempted to table in Scots, but obviously the rules of this place didn't allow that. But I do thank the Table Office for their engagement on that matter and the way in which it was dealt with. And of course, yesterday the member for Merrion had attempted to wish everyone a very happy St Patrick's Day in both Welsh and Irish, and understandably that is not allowed. And I wonder if that might be something that the leader would consider to have some time arranged, so that we could actually consider how the indigenous languages of these islands could perhaps be more incorporated into the business that we undertake, so that we can all be best reflected in the way that we represent all of our communities. And Mr Speaker, in recent weeks I've highlighted on a number of occasions and raised concerns around issues around transparency and contracts, and highlighting my ministerial interests in Emergency Powers Bill, again to make the plug for that. And I was certainly reassured by the comments from the leader that he was taking this very seriously, and I've got no doubt on that whatsoever, and that he's committed to cutting and tackling corruption. I was, however, slightly surprised to see that others in government seem to have taken his comments on cutting corruption quite literally by cutting funding to tackle corruption internationally. And actually this is in the opposite direction we need to be going in, and I wonder, could we have a debate in government time to consider the global impact and damage that these actions could cause to our democracy as a result?
Leader.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman's questions, which are particularly thoughtful, and I think I can wish him a happy birthday for earlier this week. It seems there's a flood of birthdays on the SNP benches coming, with the honourable member for Perth and North Perthshire being a birthday celebrant the week before. On the corruption issue, my previous career was in emerging markets investment, and it was quite clear that the countries that do best and prosper most are those that are the least corrupt, and rooting out corruption is in the interests of all countries. Should always be at the forefront of their minds if they want to succeed and raise the standing of living of their people. This country has a proud record of avoiding corruption. It's absolutely fascinating how in the 18th century we were still quite a corrupt country, but by the middle of the 19th century we set a standard for honesty that has remained ever since, and we should be proud of that. And I think it is very easy to defend the procurement that has gone on because it was urgent, it was fairly done, contracts were awarded broadly so that we went from 1% of PPE being produced domestically to 70%, and the phenomenal success of the vaccine rollout. Governments have to be fleet of foot, and bureaucracy is not always the antidote to corruption. Indeed, bureaucracy itself can sometimes be the cause of corruption. I share his pleasure that Spotify is recognising the Scots language. In terms of what is orderly in this chamber, Mr Speaker, I would be very diffident about treading on your distinguished toes, except to remind people, which I don't think is treading on your toes, that modest quotation in foreign languages is permissible. I know some honourable members occasionally use Latin quips, and that is perfectly allowable, and Welsh quips and Scots quotations are allowed, but not full speeches. And I think that is reasonable because we don't have the facilities for simultaneous translation in this House. The cost of them would probably be disproportionate. So I think it is very welcome when people give a joyful message in Scots or in Welsh or in Irish, but that it would be difficult for the House to have full speeches. May I share his congratulations for voluntary groups that help to change and improve attitudes, whether that is against everyday racism or is against behaviour towards women that is damaging, unhelpful to society. And I so agree with what my right friend the Prime Minister said, that we need cultural change. It's what we're doing in this place with the work of the ICGS, that ultimately it isn't going to be enforcement or rules, though they have their place. It is getting people to understand that what is the right form of behaviour is different from what they may have grown up to believe, and it is changing attitudes much more than it is punishing people.
I did feel my toes a little stood on, I must admit. I felt the trampling of the leader. Just to say, a quip is one thing, but starting off in one language, switching to another language, and a question not knowing when it will end, does give the chair a problem. If the chair had been notified, it wouldn't have been a difficulty. It's the fact that we had two languages before whether the full question was going to continue. So I think there is a difference between a quip and a question being asked. Right, let us go to Sir